let's get started with the Chicago Bears. And the Bears, now the one thing that is very important as far as the Chicago Bears is not only the fact that they now have the number one pick, thanks to Houston's win at the end of the season, but they also have the most cap space. They've got the combination. Now, let's keep in mind the numbers we're using for the salary cap are, once again, it's early on because we know that this is going to change an awful lot, not just when you start spending money in free agency, but also once you start thinking about those teams at the bottom end of the salary cap, like those last 10 or 12 teams, and you're a fan of those teams, and you're real nervous because you see they're minus in salary cap. It's too early. They're going to do a lot of juggling. They know what they're doing. Don't worry about that stuff. It's a lot easier to manipulate the NFL salary cap now than it has ever been. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. I just think right now it's awesome for teams and fan bases like the Bears when they look and find out that you can have potentially over $90 million in cap space. And Ryan Poles, this will be his second draft. Matt Eberflus. This, of course, is going to be year 2 when he coaches the team next year. And by the way, you sent your list in, and we're going to have all of this information available for on every team's depth chart as well. So for now on, when you go to the Ourlads depth chart, you'll be able to see. Hey, not only will you be able to look at just find out what's going on with your team, but just scroll down and you'll be able to see the early team needs list that Dave puts together as well as the updated one of March. But I just wanted to say you sent your information initially to the war room there to get it posted at Ourlads. And when you did, I just had to briefly look over just to make sure we were on the same page for the format. But I made sure to not even look at any of yours. I wanted to make sure that it was like, okay, I've got mine, you've got yours, you're the expert. Let's see exactly how I do going up against what you think at this time might be their top 3 needs. So I think on offense, I think the number one is either they have to decide on a center or potentially a right tackle for Riley Reiff. What do you think about that? Because Reif's a free agent right now.
The number one need on this team is without a doubt the offensive line. That's where I wrote in. I just wrote offensive line. And I think, like you said, there's multiple spots on that line that need to be fixed. I think the pass protection is what needs to be fixed first. Justin Fields, there were 18 quarterbacks that dropped back to pass more than him, and he was by far the most sacked quarterback in the NFL. Part of that could be on him. We know that. Young quarterback maybe likes to hold on to the ball a little too long, that a little bit too confident in his legs. Yeah. All right. But I think the pass protection comes first.
But there are good things, and I want to ask you about this as a draft-related question. Are you surprised how well Braxton Jones took over in camp and was because they had injuries along the offensive line as well, but how well he played? He started every game the entire rookie season at left tackle as a 5th-round draft pick, and he's not even an FBS player.
Shocked. That it was probably, if I had to say the biggest 3 surprises of the draft class, he's on there. He's right next to Tariq Woolen from Seattle. Woolen gets a little bit more hype because of the turnovers, and nobody gives offensive linemen any love. Braxton Jones is one of the best stories of the draft class. And is he the franchise left tackle of the future? He can be, but if you do go into the draft and saying, hey, we have a Broderick Jones, a Paris Johnson, probably not at number one overall, but if they do bump down a little bit via trade down, you could make a case to put Braxton over at right tackle and bring in a higher graded player and put him at left tackle. But to me, the guy proved that he can hack it on the outside at left side. So that right tackle spot is a little bit easier to fix.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe you even bring back Reiff on a cheap contract because they have the money.
Right. Yeah, they do. They have the money, and I think it's a nice backup option. They also have Alex Leatherwood, a first-round bust from the Raiders, but they're going to try to develop him. I don't think this team is far from having a good offensive line.
Jenkins is right now developing into a top interior player.
Yep. I mean, we're seeing this more and more. Tackles that were not NFL tackles. They were good college tackles, but you put them inside, and now all of a sudden they're considered a plus athlete inside. And then Jenkins, especially, all the power in the world. He's explosive. That's what you want in the middle of your line. You combine that with Cody Whitehair. The center and right tackle positions are the 2 needs that are needed the most.
Yes.
I lean more towards the pass protector which is on the right side at tackle.
Yeah, and look, we know center. You're not going to draft that guy early, so we just get that out of the way. But it is going to be a position they're going to have to take a look at because Lucas was kind of brought in on a 1-year deal, even though it was a 2-year deal, because they could pretty much let him go. I believe they could save like $4 million in cap space if they let him go. Again,
Right.
they don't need the money or to save the money, but we'll just keep an eye on that. But again, it's not going to be an early guy. Whitehair makes a lot of money, but I think they could afford it. He's a steady presence, so no reason to screw around with that. On defense, though, and by the way, the other position of need, I think, on offense, I think they could use like a chain moving receiver, like somebody that they can rely on. Again, middle round kind of guy, somebody that is just really good at finding, creases in the zones that can help move the chains. But defensively, definitely the defensive line has got to be a major need, and which is why we talked on our defensive line shows about the whole idea of which direction would they go if they stayed at number 1. Would they be going at defensive tackle or on the edge rush? And this is why we also said that chances are that even if they trade down a little, they don't want to probably trade down too far away from either one of those two top players.
Yeah, I mean, I think both Jalen Carter and Will Anderson, they bring exactly what the Bears need. They need a sack artist on their team. They need a guy that on third down, they're going to be the ones to go and get the passer. They're going to affect the passing game. That's what they want the most. I look at their current depth chart right now and I'm saying, is there a spot that lacks depth more than the other? Are they weaker inside than they are on the outside? I mean, think in the past year, they've traded away Khalil Mack and Robert Quinn, right? And they're left with 5th-round pick Dominique Robinson, who I love from an upside perspective. But there just isn't much on the outside. And again, if you're asking me, what do I want? I'm going Jalen Carter. What do I think they're going to do just based on NFL tradition? Will Anderson just seems to be, I would say, like the 70-30 favorite right now.
And then again, that's if they stay there, because with all the needs they have, a cult Chicago trade, it just seems too easy to not work somehow.
Yes, it makes all the sense in the world. And that, I think the one person that holds the keys to that decision is Colts owner Jim Irsay. He's an aggressive guy. Is he okay? We'll get to the Colts in a little bit, but is he okay with taking a step back, going for a rookie quarterback and rebuilding it, even though the rest of the roster is pretty strong? They just don't have the quarterback, and he might want to, for the 3rd, 4th year in a row, go the veteran route. With a limited ceiling.
And look, we don't even know who their coach is yet. So
I know that's
I can't imagine if it's a legitimate credentialed coach that guy's not going to go in there already with an understanding that not only am I running this offense, but you have to assure me that you will do what you need to do to move up so I get myself a quarterback, or stay at 4 and I get a quarterback. But we're drafting a quarterback with our first pick.
Yeah, I agree with you.
All right. By the way, also on defense, they need the linebackers on the outside, but when you run a 4-3, that's not something you need to worry about too early with all the other needs they have. How surprised were you of Jack Sanborn's play? As soon as they get rid of Roquan Smith, Sanborn comes in, wasn't even drafted, and man, he played really well until his injury, and that is a huge relief looking forward and saying, hey, that's a position that we've already got checked off now.
Yeah, when you consider the drama and the finances revolved around that Roquan Smith trade, you feel a lot better about it now after watching Sanborn play. And maybe Chicago had an inside track there saying, hey, this dude can play. Let's get him on the field at a fraction of the price.
You have to have that. You have to have a certain number of players in your team that are not making money. It's the only way you survive in this league.
Have to. And so, I think Sanborn is the guy in the middle. He could use another one next to them. They play nickel more often than not. So I don't think they need 2 guys in there, but Nicholas Morrow, who is probably their best linebacker outside of Sanborn, he's currently a free agent.
Yep.
Will he come back? Right now I'm saying no. No. So if he doesn't, that's going to open up a big hole there as well.
Oh, speaking of free agents, we have to talk about Montgomery. Look, I know they got a lot of money, and as long as, especially since it's a running back, as long as Montgomery's not asking for who knows what crazy dollar amount might be in his head. All right, we got the money. We'll bring him back. Herbert, Montgomery, we're good. But when I'm rebuilding like the Bears are, I'm just not going to spend my money there when I've got Khalil Herbert. That's just sitting on the bench. And he could do just as good as a job, I believe, than Montgomery if he's given the chance. Draft another running back in the 5th round or sign another free agent and use, even though you have the money, it's still going to cost you, you would think, I don't know what, 15, 20 million guaranteed, maybe, I guess. Why spend it at Montgomery when you're rebuilding at this point in time and you already have Herbert?
I agree. I mean, Herbert, a 6th-round pick, in my opinion, right now, take the money out of it, is a better running back than Montgomery. He's going to be coming back from an injury, so that's something that has to be accounted for. But we all know this by now. You can find the running backs day 3 every single year. I'm not one to say that I'll never pay a running back, but in this situation, like you said, there's just no point in a rebuilding roster committing, no matter how much money you have, that much money to a player that is probably the 2nd-best player in the depth chart.
And you have Ebner as well. That's a solid number 2 if you want to put. The only thing that I question whether they do that, though, is because they did not trade him at the deadline. And I couldn't understand why.
Yeah, Montgomery?
Yes. Because why wouldn't they? You're telling me nobody was willing to give you anything unless they felt that, they were just going to give us garbage and maybe we can still get Montgomery for a reasonable amount that makes sense for us. Otherwise, it's possible they're still thinking of keeping him.
It's possible. And again, from his perspective, general manager Ryan Poles, you say, hey, we have so much money. We're still not paying a quarterback. We're not paying an edge rusher. We're not paying a corner right now. This won't hurt us as much as some other teams.
Yep.
But I agree with you. You can find David Montgomery day 3 of the draft any year.
And then at cornerback, that was the other position because even though you have Gordon and Johnson, Vildor is just, you can move on from Vildor. You need that 3rd corner in that defensive backfield, which has one of the top safety tandems in all of football. I'm not sure people understand that outside of Chicago, how talented they are at safety.
Yeah.
With Brisker coming in this year. But they need that number 3 corner too.
Yep. Yeah. 3 corners, like the nickel's a starting spot on the defense now. It's no longer a backup. And Kyler Gordon, even he played a lot of football this year, took his lumps as a rookie. He was one of the lowest graded rookie corners in the league. But again, I think the upside is too high there. He's too early in his career to move on from him. But I'm big on prep yourself for something not working out. And a cornerback would be good value at any point in the draft for these guys outside of round 1.